So we are launching, that was the whole purpose of this particular session, we are launching the CEO Guide to Climate-Related Corporate Performance and Accountability System. Corporate Performance and Accountability System, CPAS. CPAS. I can talk slow because I have half an hour. It's like super nice. Anyway, it's a beautiful cover. I have a few versions here, I'll hand them out. Anyway, there we go. Chris made the point very, very clear. If you walk around the landscape here, you can only but worry about climate change. The need is so urgent for us to act. Global Stocktake, I think, will publish later this week. It's not going to be good news. Phasing up, phasing down report, climate action report. Anywhere between 1.7 and 2.9 degrees seems to be the trajectory we're on. 1.5 alive is what we need to do, but it's a struggle to get there. And that struggle will only be realized if we think in transformative terms. This is not incrementally anymore. This is radical transformation. And from that point of view, I really compliment the COP28 with putting together the Business and Philanthropy Climate Forum. Because I've been to 12 COPs before this one, had many brilliant meetings, but they were always in hotels outside of the green and the blue and the other zones. And now we're inside, we're part of the conversation, and we should use that. But we must not make the mistake to think that it's the government that is failing us. Business is not on track either. This is from the recent, I think last week's Accenture report, Destination to Net Zero. Of the top 2,000 companies in the world, 37% are on track to, or have set a net zero target. 33% of those companies are reducing their emissions, but none of those are going fast enough. And in the assessment, only 18% have a chance to deliver net zero by 2050. And these are the largest companies in the world. You know, the SMEs are probably even further behind on these type of tracks because it's hard for them to keep up. So business is not on track. And that means you'll hear a lot of talk this week and next week that business needs to be held accountable. The days of voluntary having a commitment and then, 3 CEOs later having to explain that you didn't deliver are not going to be credible anymore. And you see it last year, COP27, the high-level expert group Integrity Matters report came out. High level as it was, but 8 or 9 recommendations on how transparency by business needed to go up. Amazing work earlier this year, the ISSB S1 and S framework. 2 years of incredible work by many people have now delivered the accounting rules for climate-related disclosures. If Sir Chris tells us we need regulation, then the answer that I would give, make ISSB S1 and S2 the mandatory disclosure framework for all companies in the world, no exceptions. Then we get to comparable data that is materiality-based that the investors and other stakeholders can look at. UNFCCC have now embraced the concept of accountability. Working group is underway, first papers have been shared. The expectation is they will not publish this week or next week in COP, but in Q1. Also the UNFCCC will come out with statements around accountability by business. This is now inevitable. Do not believe that voluntary disclosures are the way forward. You will be forced into an accountability framework. And that means business must not make the mistake that this is a compliance exercise. Anyone who's exposed to CSRD in Europe is breaking their brains on how do we actually fill the many requirements that CSRD has. I meet many business leaders who have said, we have reallocated people from our transformation teams into the accounting teams to figure out where we're going to find the data. That is the wrong answer. What we need to do is get business to make better decisions that are based on climate-related risks and opportunities. We then secondly need to make sure that we disclose the progress towards our goals transparently. And ISSB S1, S2, as a global baseline is the way to go. Then we need to make sure that capital markets, even though there were colorful comments from Chris on the capacity of those people, that they need to include that in their valuation models, because if they do, you'll see that better decisions, transparency disclosed, will lead to valuations that make capital flow to the solutions that work. The end goal of this talk is super simple. The more sustainable a business, the lower the cost of capital. That's where we need to go. The minute that that's the reality, we don't need cops anymore, because then the market will take over. And that means we're launching CPaaS. Did you get that word? CPaaS. And the good thing about launching CPaaS, it's nothing new. Those of you who run a business, you run your business this way. You have a supervisory board, non-executives, that have governance. You have an enterprise risk management system that looks at financial risk. You set targets, you make a strategy, you have a management accounting system, management incentives, and you produce an annual report. There's nothing new. The only thing we now need to do is consistently integrate climate-related risk and opportunities into this process. And some will say, well, I'm already doing that. I'm using greenhouse gas protocol or any of the other tools. The answer is no, you don't. You may use greenhouse gas protocol, but who of you is using scope 3 product level real-time data? Very few, if any. Who of you have physical risk of all the locations in your supply chain mapped and integrated into your risk assessment? I would argue none. Those are the type of integrations we need to get to. We need to understand where the risks are. We need to understand where the market opportunities are. And if we do that, then you all of a sudden see that your transition plan, your climate transition plan, is not a separate plan. It's going to be integrated in your corporate strategy plan. That will drive research and development, product development, materials development, supply chain development, and eventually sales and marketing of your new green products. So it becomes an accelerator of the transformation and the opportunity to grab the market opportunities that are out there. The big problem on why this is not working is there is a massive misalignment with financial markets. And that's not because the investors are stupid. I'm sure there's a few of those, but in general, the market is right. But we, business, don't provide them with decision-useful information. We haven't integrated the risks into our disclosures. They don't look at those risks and integrate them in their models either. But we have this misalignment of not providing decision-useful information, and therefore, capital markets giving us the wrong incentives. New CEOs coming in their roles, similarly, seemingly paddling back from their previous ambitions under pressure by capital markets. That is the incentive that we need to crack. And therefore, CPaaS will provide decision-useful information to capital markets, which can then go into the valuation, capital allocation. And so if you bring these three together, then all of a sudden you see what we're trying to create. An integrated system where climate risks and opportunities are part of management process, driving transformation, providing decision-useful information, so that real solutions attract a better capital flow. Real solutions attracting a lower cost of capital, that's what we need to figure out. And there's massive work that CEOs in the room and leaders in foundations need to do together. Because just to make the CPaaS circle work, where SBTi and greenhouse gas and ISSB all use different surveys and definitions, it's a nightmare if you're a business to work through. How do we make CPaaS frictionless? That's where we need to work together and push hard. But this is the way forward. It's all laid down in this guide. You can use the QR code, and I thank you so much.